faithful, not because I've been so good. You've always been there for me to provide my every need. You were there when I was lonely. You were there in all my pain, guiding my footsteps, shelter from the rain. And it was you made my life complete. You are to me my everything. That is why I sing. Jesus, I love you because you care. I couldn't imagine if you weren't there. Jesus, I love you because you care. I couldn't imagine if you weren't there. You are the joy of my salvation. You're the peace in my storm. Your loving arms protect me, shelter me from harm. You are Alpha and Omega, beginning and the end. My strong tower, my dearest and great friend. And it was you made my life complete. You are to me my everything. That is why I sing. Jesus, I love you because you care. I couldn't imagine if you weren't there. Jesus, I love you because you care. I couldn't imagine if you weren't there. Jesus, I love you because you care. I couldn't imagine if you weren't there. Jesus, I love you because you care. I couldn't imagine if you weren't there. Jesus, I love you, I love you. Jesus, I love you, I love you. Jesus, I love you, I love you because you care. Jesus, I love you, I love you. Jesus, I love you, I love you. Jesus, I love you, I love you because you care. Jesus, I love you, I love you. Jesus, I love you, I love you. Jesus, I love you, I love you because you care. Jesus, I love you because you care. Mountains bow down and the seas will roar at the sound of your name. I sing for joy at the work of your hands. Forever I'll love you, forever I'll stand. Nothing compares to the promise I have in you.
Good evening, everybody. Tonight I want to talk to you about emergency preparedness, and I want to say how impressed I've been with the preaching and the teaching we've had recently. But tonight you get the crusty old guy that hangs out in the back. And I know some of you might be thinking, well, if we believe in the promises of God's word about Him being our shield, and our buckler, and our refuge, our provider, and if we have faith in Him to save us out of every temptation or trial by making a way of escape, why should we worry about preparing for disasters and emergencies? Aren't we the apple of His eye? And yes, we are. Rest assured, if you were baptized in Jesus' name, filled with His Holy Spirit, He's promised to never leave you or forsake you. I've taught in the church a couple of times and spoke about how to prepare for earthquakes and what gear, food, water, clothing you should have available to help you survive emergencies. Tonight I want to spend more time talking to you about why we should put the effort and expense into emergency preparedness. There's so much that we can do to be properly prepared. There's food, water, finances, electrical power, shelter, clothing, and all kinds of gear that we couldn't possibly cover it adequately in one session. If you're interested in more detailed instruction or have information to contribute, please let your care group leader or one of the other church leaders know so we can do whatever we need to meet your needs. In future presentations, I'll probably concentrate on one topic at a time. For instance, how to use solar generators, batteries, and gasoline generators to provide your own power. I'm going to use a little scripture here to start off with. In Matthew 24, verses 1 through 8. And Jesus went out, departed from the temple, and His disciples came to Him for to show Him the buildings of the temple. And Jesus said unto them, See ye not all these things? Verily I say unto you, there shall not be left here one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down. And he sat upon the Mount of Olives. The disciples came unto Him privately, saying, Tell us when shall these things be, and what shall be the sign of thy coming, and of the end of the world? Jesus answered and said unto them, Take heed that no man deceive you, for many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many. And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled. For all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines, and pestilences, and earthquakes in divers places. All these are the beginnings of sorrows. How much does that look like the picture of what's going on in our world today? We've got wars everywhere around the world. We've got famines, pestilences. What about this COVID-19 all around the world? Earthquakes. You know that earthquake in Magna that happened a while back? It didn't even happen on a known fault line. Talk about a diverse place or an earthquake. So tonight I want to cover 4 specific areas of emergency preparation. Number 1 being prayer. 2nd, finances. 3rd, food, water supply. 4th, health and exercise. Start with prayer. In my mind, the single most important action you can take in emergency preparation is praying. When you pray, pay attention to those thoughts that sometimes seem to randomly enter your mind. The more you pray, the more familiar you become with how Jesus talks to you individually. I know he talks to everybody in different ways. With me, it's sometimes it's a thought that just pops into my mind, and usually related to maybe something I've read in the Bible lately, or something that's been preached, or something I'm just wondering about. And many times he'll give me an answer by just placing a thought in my mind and for me to chew on. And but I know he works with other people differently. But you know, the morning before the earthquake in Magna, the first one, not the morning of it, but the morning before, just the thought of an earthquake popped into my mind out of the blue. And so the next day when it actually hit, I wasn't even surprised. I was kind of expecting it. And so I ran through a bunch of mental questions. You know, we'd covered earthquakes here in church previously. And I ran through my mind real quick, are we really prepared here at home? And I knew we were, so I felt really free that Kathy was just fine for me to leave and go to work, because part of our job is to respond to self-tower outages during emergencies. But the thing is that when that earthquake happened, it wasn't even a surprise to me, because I got it in prayer the morning before into my mind, and had already mentally been stepping through things that we needed to prepare. So I believe that many times Jesus sends us warnings and prayers that's vital to our survival. And so I encourage you, when you pray, ask the Lord, prepare me for what's coming our way, because he knows. There's no surprises to him. He knows the end from the beginning, knows every day that's coming. And I would encourage you to always ask him to prepare you for what's coming your way, not only for your sake, but for the sake of the people in your life. Proverbs chapter 3, verse 6 says, "In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your path." But just remember, when he directs you, action is required. Second topic I want to talk about is finances. We all should understand that God has made us stewards of everything in our possession. There are several illustrations in the Gospels about the rewards of good stewardship and the punishments for unfaithful stewardship. I grew up in a generation after the Great Depression. The parents of my generation knew what it was like to live with a great degree of uncertainty. There was no Social Security or government-provided safety net back in their day. And when my brothers and I were very young, we started out working in the fields, hoeing weeds and picking crops and whatever other jobs that there were to be had on the local farms. And our mom started a savings account for each one of us. She started us out with $25 in our account. And I learned at a very young age to save and budget. A couple times I wiped out my whole savings account because of something stupid I did. And it cost everything I had saved to get me out of that mess. But the important thing is to have that safety net that you can fall back on. Keep a buffer between yourself and disaster. From our dad, we learned to save money to buy whatever we wanted. If at all possible, we were taught, pay cash and don't borrow to make a purchase. You know, back then, in order to purchase a vehicle or a house, you had to put at least 1/3 of the price down as a down payment. And something inside of me never learned how to relax when it comes to finances. Throughout my whole life, I would contemplate before I ever bought anything that cost more than a couple dollars. My brothers used to make fun of me. They'd say, "You know, you're so tight, you squeak when you walk." And it was true. But I've always been so cautious that I won't purchase anything unless I know I have enough assets to pay for it if I lose my job or the ability to work. Concerning finances, save as much as you can in case there comes a time when you can't work. You may think you're secure in your job situation, but all it takes is something like the government forcing your business to shut down because of a pandemic, or your place of employment burning down to the ground, or being destroyed in an earthquake to shake up your security. You've heard me say it before, in a time of disaster, that cash is king. Most purchases nowadays are electronic. You can order stuff online, use a credit card or debit card at the store, or get cash out of an ATM. All those options require a network connection of some type. These connections are transported via copper wire, fiber optic cable, or wirelessly over the air. But what happens when that network connection is cut? An earthquake, major power outage, or cyber attack can cut that network connection. And with no network connection, your phone or your card, they're not going to work. Always have enough gas leading your vehicle to get home or to a safe place from wherever you are, because you may not be able to use your card to buy gas at a gas station. If you can't keep enough gas leading your vehicle, make sure you have enough cash on you to purchase fuel along the way. As a side note, you've heard me say it before, always have an emergency kit in your vehicle. And I'll talk about that subject a little bit later, but right now we're talking about finances. At home, try to have enough cash secured to operate for a couple of weeks at least. Banks are vulnerable to disasters also. Excuse me. The money you put into the bank may not always be there for you to take out anytime you need it. History is a great teacher. I'm going to inject a little history lesson we learned when I was in grade school. It's titled The German Economy in the 1920s, written by Daniel Castillo. There were several characteristics which Germany possessed after the First World War, which made them vulnerable to being manipulated by someone like Adolf Hitler. As in most nations, the economic factors of the time play a significant role in determining how a society will behave. Germany was economically devastated after a draining defeat in World War I. Due to the Versailles Treaty, Germany was forced to pay incredibly sizable reparations to France and Britain, in addition to the Versailles Treaty, which many agreed was far too harsh, forced Germany to give up 13% of its land. At first, Germany tried to recover from the war by social spending. Kind of sounds like today, doesn't it? Germany began creating transportation projects, modernization of power plants and gas works. These were all used to battle the increasing unemployment rate. Social spending was rising at an unbelievable rate. In 1913, the government was spending approximately 20.5 francs per resident. By 1925, it had risen to almost 65 marks. And finally, in 1929, it reached over 100 marks per resident. The elevated amounts of money which were used for social spending combined with plummeting revenues causing continuing deficits. Eventually, the municipal finance collapsed in 1930, although it seemed as a collapse was due to debt. In actuality, ordinary budgets were the reason for the initial collapse. Municipal officials and politicians were unable to restore order to the budgets. Further adding to Germany's economic problems, the revenue from income tax began to fall. You know, with people not working today, they're earning less wages and they're paying less income tax, and everything we're reading about here about Germany's economy, we're seeing happen in our own economy right now for various reasons. On with this, in 1913, over 53% of all tax revenues was from income, but in 1925, it dropped down to 28%. As the returns on income taxes decreased, the government began to depend much more on state trade and property tax. The government also became highly dependent on the profits made from municipal utilities such as electric power plants. Even with all of Germany's economic shortcomings, it could still have been possible to make reparation payments if foreign countries had not placed protective tariffs on Germany's goods. With the income Germany could have gained by selling goods in foreign countries for relatively low prices, reparation payments could have become feasible. The protected tariffs made this idea impossible and further depressed the German economy. Faced with reparation payments they could not afford, Germany began printing exaggerated amounts of money. This threw Germany into a state of superinflation. Inflation reached the point where millions of marks were worthless. Cartoons at the time depicted people with wheelbarrows full of money who could not buy a loaf of bread. With the approach of the world crisis, foreign leaders withdrew capital markets further closed against German imports. I'm going to stop right there with that, but what we see happening in our economy today very closely mirrors what happened to the German economy in the 1920s. Our government has been printing money at an alarming rate the past few years, and like it said there, this inevitably leads to superinflation. And so that's why I say your bank, you can't always depend that you're going to be able to get your money out of the bank. Nowadays we do have something that's called FDIC, Federal Deposit Insurance, something, but if there is no money to pay you, you can't really depend even on the FDIC. So think about that when you're making your decisions on keeping cash at home and leaning on your bank and making all your financial decisions. Money printing creates a chain reaction long term. And as people lose faith in the US dollar, currency loses value. People start perceiving money as worthless, and hoarding valuable items begins. Without enough food or essential supplies on the shelves, people get creative or starve. Looting and fighting over resources may happen in more densely populated areas. Bartering may become our way of life if the economy collapses. If you can reduce your debt, you will have less to lose if the economy fails. I'm only bringing this up because the warning signs are all around us. Now, I'm not a financial advisor, so take my warnings however you choose, but I encourage you to pay attention to what's going on around you. The time to prepare for an emergency is before the emergency. My advice is to make space in your budget for constant stocking up of non-perishable supplies. When you haven't prepared, emergency preparation becomes emergency reaction. And when people aren't sufficiently prepared, they experience a level of panic. Panic leads to bad decisions. We all saw the irrational panic that caused people to rush to the stores and buy up as much toilet paper as they could. When this was happening, I was thinking, really? Toilet paper? Is that gonna save you from anything? And only later did they start panic shopping for more rational items like food. You know, word gets around and panic in one person it affects another person. Pretty soon you've got a mob in panic because people haven't really thought it through Their decisions are affected by the fact that they're not prepared for the situations around them. And I have to admit, even though we had enough toilet paper stored away in our emergency supplies to carry us through until we were finally able to buy some 3 weeks after the great toilet paper rush, we were eventually going to run out sooner or later and have to buy some. And I did not anticipate that this would be a big issue, but it was. So I have to admit that one took me by surprise, but fortunately we were prepared for it. And so what I'd say, preparation is better than reaction every time. Now I want to talk about food and water supply. During the first couple of weeks of this pandemic, there were a lot of empty shelves in the grocery stores. Because my wife and I have been stocking up on dehydrated, freeze-dried food for years now, we really didn't have any concerns. We were able to keep purchasing what we normally eat from the store because it's just the two of us, and we don't really need that much. Bottled water went with the toilet paper in the initial mad rush. I was reading an article by one contributor in preparation for this presentation, and he suggested keeping a 3-month supply of food. I'd say I think that's pretty accurate. Nutrient-dense foods with long shelf lives, such as rice or beans, can be bought fairly cheaply. If you've been watching the news lately, farmers have been having to destroy their crops. Dairy farmers have been dumping milk. Hog farmers have been euthanizing pigs. Cattle ranchers can't get meat processing plants to take their cattle because some of the plants have been closed and they've been forced to shut down. Even locally here, there was a potato farmer in Idaho asking whoever could to come and grab potatoes because so many restaurants shut down, he couldn't sell all his crops. And if the farmers and ranchers fail, we'll start to see shortages of meat, poultry, and vegetables in the stores. When I was talking about nutrient-dense foods there, such as rice or beans, let me say this. I know people have different dietary needs, and some people can't eat things that other people can, so I'm not trying to be your nutritionist. Please, whatever your doctor tells you to eat, that's what you want to have available. But now's the time to start stocking up on canned meats, vegetables, and fruits, because they're still available in the store. I looked at shelves soon after they started emptying out, and I was still finding tuna fish and things like that, and those are great items to have stored up. Canned vegetables and fruits, I never saw those empty out. So now's the time to start stocking up on that stuff. If you don't have a pantry, you might want to start one. Stock up on canned goods and rotate them out as necessary. Canned tuna fish is a great source of needed protein, and so is peanut butter. And you know, for years I've been hearing all these diet fads and people telling you that carbs are bad for you and cut out all the carbs out of your diet, but I have to say I don't believe that. If you're an active person, carbohydrates are the greatest source of energy, quick energy, and when you're under stress and there's problems going on around you and you need more energy, carbohydrates are your friend sometimes. So take some of these things into consideration. Some of these diets are just meant to keep people thin and looking a certain way, but do your research and see what's good for your body. I've been watching the websites of the companies I buy freeze-dried foods from for several weeks after the big panic. You couldn't even order long-term storage food because everything was out of stock. Everybody rushed, got online, and started stocking up. Even now with some companies, you can place an order And that'll get you a place in line, and when they finally start catching up, then they'll send you what you ordered. Will this return to normal? I really don't know. Can't tell you whether it will or won't, but my suggestion is start working on it. My suggestion is to place orders for the 72-hour freeze-dried food kits. Those are, just about everybody still has those. Most people are ordering, like your 4-week supply, your 3-month supply. But the 72-hour kits are usually available. And the thing about that is once you order 1 or 2 of those, you get on that company's email list, and they'll send you emails all the time when what they've got in stock, and sometimes they run sales and you'll know about it. So I would suggest starting out with some 72-hour freeze-dried food kits. And here's a list of companies I purchased freeze-dried food from. Foodforpatriots.com is one of my favorites. And I just made a purchase from them a couple of weeks ago. They're a good source for freeze-dried entrees. And Kathy and I bought a breakfast kit from them a while back, and I have to say everything in there was pretty tasty, especially the pancakes. They were surprisingly good. Thrive Life, their website is thrivelife.com. They're down in American Fork. I made a purchase from them recently. They're a great source for freeze-dried fruits, vegetables, chicken, and beef that you can supplement your entrees with, but I have to say they're kind of expensive. So they are good though. But Patriot Pantry is another source. MyPatriotSupply.com is their website. You can get all this information from me anytime you want, but just going to run through it. Currently, if you place an order here, you'll go on a waiting list. They're a good source for freeze-dried entrees, similar to Food for Patriots. Emergency Essentials is probably, everybody's familiar with them. Their website is beprepared.com, and they currently have quite a choice in stock. They're a great source for entrees and supplemental items. And another company I've bought from is Wise Company. Their web address is wisefoodstorage.com. They offer entree kits. They're a bit more expensive than others. Costco's a good source. You go online, and they don't always have a big supply of food preparation items, but every now and then you'll find some good stuff on there. I've got a couple of bucket loads of things here. One of the things I really liked I got from them one time was a bucket of pre-cooked pinto beans. So all you have to do is just put them in boiling water for a little while, and you've got some pretty good frijoles. And I would encourage everybody to try home gardening. Kathy and I, we found out that potatoes are pretty easy to grow here in Utah. We've had some pretty good potato crops. And, I'm not really a very good gardener. I haven't had a whole lot of success at other stuff, but you can't hardly mess up potatoes. This year we have potatoes and some onions. And, we've got some cantaloupe we're going to plant, and some other things that Kathy already planted, some tomatoes. But I would encourage you to, if you can, if you've got a little bit of room, try gardening. When I was talking about bartering a while back, food is going to be one of the best things you can use to barter. When money is not if it ever loses its value and we turn to a barter system, then food is one of the items that's going to be a big thing you can barter. Another thing, just to think about is your own personal skills. We all have our jobs and we're good at what we do at our place of employment, but most of us have other skills too, and that'll be something you could barter also if the need arises. Find things that people need, you could do them, then trade your skills for whatever they have you need. Water. Without water we can't survive. I mean, it's even more essential than food in many ways. But people tend to forget that water coming out of your tap is usually safe to drink. It's always a good idea to have as much bottled water on hand as you can, especially if you have to go somewhere. After a prolonged power outage, your water company might not be able to pump water into the system because their pumps need electricity to run on too. And I know that when people were buying up all the toilet paper and the water, you would hear them come on the radio. The water districts were saying, "Our water is safe to drink." Don't panic, and just remember that usually your tap water is safe to drink also, unless there's been and it does happen occasionally. A water district's tank might get contaminated by a dead raccoon or something like that, but they'll send out a message to everybody that you need to boil your water. Usually it's safe to drink. At the first sign of an emergency or disaster, fill up as many containers with water as you can. Whatever you can find that's clean, that can hold water, I would suggest you start filling those things up as soon as a disaster happens. Even your bathtub. I'm not talking about using this water for drinking or washing dishes or anything, but if your water supply is no longer there, you can use that water to flush your toilets. You can, use it for various things. Water, wash your hands and various things. Remember that sunlight also purifies water. I forgot if I mentioned, but boiling water for 3 minutes will purify it. You should have other ways to purify water for drinking, cooking, and doing dishes. Now, like I said, all those other things you use water for, it has to be potable, just to make sure it's reasonably clean. And a note about water storage. For long-term storage of water for human consumption, blue containers are better than white ones. The blue limits light exposure and biological growth. Water does not go bad. Water can have a stale taste, but that taste can be eliminated by rotating your water and purifying it. If it started out clean and is stored in a dark, cool area, it can store indefinitely. I know somebody asked me a while back that if you purified your water, put it in a container, would it go bad and how long would it be good? And I guessed at 5 years, but I did some more research, and like I said here, if it was clean when you put it in that container, it'll be good for indefinitely if it's stored correctly. Health and exercise. Every expert will tell you that keeping in as good physical shape as we can goes a long way toward warding off illness. A lot of us have jobs that require us to spend most of our days sitting down or driving. Not only do our legs become weak, but our joints become stiff. Regular periods of walking will not only help to strengthen your legs, but will lessen the pain of arthritis. If you can exercise to the point of raising your heartbeat for at least 20 minutes a day, you'll be much more able to handle the stress in an emergency. I realize you might be thinking, I can't afford to do all that. And that's all right. We have a God that loves us more than we can comprehend. If we could do everything, we would. If we could do everything, we would be little gods to ourselves. This world is set for judgment, but He's doing everything He can to draw every last soul that will repent. I don't think things are going to get much better, maybe for brief periods of time, but His Word gives us plenty of signs to recognize we're living in a crucial period of time. He has set His seal on those who obey His commandments and walk with Him. He's promised to go through every trial with us. It's up to us to reach the lost, to testify of God's mercy. We will be much more able to meet people's spiritual needs if we can also help out with their physical needs. We should not be the ones needing help. We know that Jesus is coming for us one day, and that once the church is gone, the evil one will come to power for a terrible, terrible period of time on this earth. And until that day, we must endure. We're not going to be exempt from all the troubles and hardships that the rest of the world goes through, because we're still here. And we have to endure until that day our God comes for us. And I have to tell you, I'm looking forward to that day, but I want to last until that day. We have some terrific LDS neighbors. When Kathy was reeling from the physical blow of her vestibular illness and the loss of her mother, some of our neighbors came around to offer her encouragement and meals. And I have to admit, I felt a little awkward because I always want to be a giver and not a receiver. And though we weren't really in need of meals or anything like that, it was that compassion that they gave her that was really touching. And that's really what it's all about, brothers and sisters. We should be ready to do that for the people around us. And if we're maintaining and we're getting through our trials and everything, we'll be much more able to offer other people compassion. But if we're hunkered down and just struggling to try to survive, and how are we going to help other people? I want to tell you, one of my heroes in the Bible is an unnamed boy. In John chapter 6, verse 1 through 14, after these things, Jesus went over the Sea of Galilee, which is the Sea of Tiberias, and a great multitude followed him because they saw his miracles which he did on them that were diseased. And Jesus went up into a mountain, and there he sat with his disciples, and the Passover, a feast of the Jews, was nigh. When Jesus then lifted up his eyes and saw a great company come unto him, he saith unto Philip, Whence shall we buy bread that these may eat? And this he said to prove him, for he himself knew what he would do. Philip answered him, 200 pennyworth of bread's not sufficient for them, that every one of them may take a little. One of his disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, saith unto him, There is a lad here which hath 5 barley loaves and 2 small fishes, but what are they among so many? Jesus said, Make the men sit down. Now there was much grass in the place, so the men sat down, in number about 5,000. And Jesus took the loaves, and when he had given thanks, he distributed to his disciples, and the disciples to them that were set down, and likewise of the fishes, as much as they would. When they were filled, he said unto his disciples, Gather up the fragments that remain, that nothing be lost. Therefore they gathered them together and filled 12 baskets with the fragments of the 5 barley loaves, which remained over and above unto them that had eaten. Then those men, when they had seen the miracle that Jesus did, this is of of a truth that the prophet should come into the world. The thing is, this boy was the only person in that big group that had prepared for the journey. He was one of the early brown baggers. And I suspect he knew he was following greatness. He had seen the same miracles everybody else had seen. Sure, Jesus could have just created enough food to feed everybody there, but he was looking for faith. That boy was the only person there who had anything to offer the king. But it was enough. Those 5 barley loaves and 2 fishes, that was all Jesus needed to feed 5,000 men and however many women and children were there. Think about that. If we'll do our best, our Lord Jesus will make up the rest. I know I've probably taken up a bit of almost a normal amount of time talking, but for those of you who want to keep on watching, I'm going to show some of the products that we have accumulated for emergency food storage and water, and that's pretty much what I've concentrated on bringing here tonight, because that's what I was wanting to talk about, is the food and water. So I'm going to show you a few things, and you're welcome to watch. And like I said, if you have any questions or want to know where to get things or how to store things, feel free to get a hold of me at any time. Okay, so I'm going to show you a few items that I've accumulated at home. First, I'm going to show you this 4 Patriots. I told you 4patriots.com is the website, and they're one of my favorite companies I buy stuff with. If you ever order anything from them, they'll start sending you catalogs, and they have quite a few products in here. Not only food, but they have power, solar generators and solar panels and various little power supplies you can buy. But they're a good source for stuff. And I was talking about water storage and blue being much better than white to use. You know, at home I have a couple of 55-gallon barrels full of water that I've already purified, but those things are so heavy you can't take them anywhere. They're in my basement until I use them. So if we had to leave somewhere and take water with us, it's much better to buy smaller containers like this 6-gallon one here. And somewhere out here I have a couple of little bottles of chemical that you can purchase from Emergency Essentials. It's made for mixing into that 55-gallon barrel to purify your water. But you can do the math and take smaller bits of it and purify water you put in here. And even if you don't purify your water, if it's clean when you put it in there, it's going to stay, you know, that level of cleanness for a while. As long as you keep it out of the sun, you know, keep it in your basement or a dark shaded place that's not too hot, that bacteria is not going to be able to grow in there. Got some dehydrated potato slices and whole eggs. These can be bought at Walmart. That's where I bought these. And I haven't looked recently to see if they still sell them, but I suspect they probably do. Smith's might even sell them. Back to water. This Life Straw is the most handy water purifier you could ever have. You can take it anywhere. These are used around the world, especially down in Africa and your third world countries that are not very developed. They use these. I've seen, you know, videos of them just drinking out of streams and stuff. They kill all those deadly things that are in the water. This is a 2-week food supply from Patriot Pantry. It has freeze-dried food in it. And these come in little packets here, so they're handy that, you know, you can use a little bit of it and then seal it back up. You be aware that once you open a packet, you probably don't have this problem because it's good for a year after you open that little packet there. Kathy and I, we don't always eat something in a year because it's only the two of us, but if you've got a family, you won't have to worry about that too much. This other container is that breakfast kit I was telling you about from Food for Patriots. Very tasty breakfast. Items, there's 24 servings of scrambled egg mix, 18 servings of buttermilk pancake mix, 16 servings of strawberry fields cream of wheat, orange energy drink mix, Maple Grove oatmeal, and potatoes O'Brien. Back to water purifier. This is a solar bag that I bought, and I can't remember where I bought it. So if you're interested in it, I have the receipt at home though, and I can look it up. But this, you just put water in it doesn't have to be real clean water, just whatever water you can get, you put it in here and leave it out in the sun, and in 3 to 5 hours, it'll be purified. Now it's, I think 1.5 liters. It says on here somewhere. But anyway, these are things you can get, so you don't need chemicals or anything like that. You can just lay it out in the sun, and they're great for camping and stuff like that. And even for use at home or taking in your vehicle. This I bought at Costco, ordered online from Costco. It's a big bucket of pinto beans, and they're in little packets too. So these you just boil some water or heat water. You put it in that water and let them soak. And 3 parts boiling water, add 1 part beans. So. And then you let it simmer for 25 minutes. And I've eaten those, and they're pretty good beans. Protein rich. Here's another bucket of dehydrated and freeze-dried food from Costco. Ordered it online. Has cinnamon rice pudding, cheddar potatoes with peppers and onions, polenta, I'm not sure what that is, Spanish rice, Louisiana style red beans and rice, Alfredo pasta, freeze-dried chicken, cooked and diced. That's valuable, that freeze-dried chicken. So you can get these at Costco every now and then. Just check their website. This I got from Emergency Essentials. It's 2-week survival in a pail, and not only do you get some food in here, sweetened banana chips, chocolate meal shake, Spanish rice, cheese broccoli rice, creamy potato soup. I'm not going to go through all these, but you get an idea what choice you get. Chocolate meal shake, said that already. But not only food, but you get a water purifier in here. That's great to have. And there's a little pail in here for cooking also, and fire discs, and you can set it up on a little stand here so you can cook with this also. So this is a very, very valuable little kit to have here. And if I remember, it was not really all that expensive. Now here's an interesting item called the Kelly kettle. And this is great for camping and also, of course, home use. But you can cook with this. You can purify water. You can boil water for whatever you want boiled water for. And still breaking everything out. I'll just show you a picture of it. You can start a fire down here in the bottom and get it heated up, and all that heat, you pour water in here and it fills the inner shell here, and that it'll boil that water in no time at all, and your heat will be coming up out of this chimney, so you can put your pot on top of there and cook also while you're boiling your water. I've used this camping and it works great. Can't remember exactly where I got that, but if you Google Kelly kettle, you will not have a hard time finding it. You know, in some of our earlier classes here at church, I showed you an emergency bag that you should keep in your vehicle at all times. This is one I bought from Emergency Essentials, and I haven't looked at it in a while, so we'll just go through it tonight and see what it is and see what I need to restock. I have an MRE here I keep in my truck also. The thing about MREs is they're great if you need something quick to eat and you don't want to have to cook it. Then you can, meals ready to eat is what an MRE is. This one is rib shaped barbecue flavor pork patty. And I have to say MREs have gotten much better as time goes on. They used to be really bad, and they're still, you know, they're not your great cuisine, but they're not that bad, and you don't have to cook them. So for your first 3 days in emergency, you may not be able to cook, and so MREs would be a great thing to have on hand. They're kind of, you do have to rotate them out. They're probably only good for maybe 5 years. And I've got a filtered water filtration bottle here. So let's see what we got. You know, I've read stories of people caught in blizzards or hurricanes, and they couldn't get to a safe place, and so they just lived in their vehicles for 3 days, 4 days, a week at a time, and these are essential for that. Okay, I've got some compressed fuel here for heating rations. Hand and body warmers. Most of this comes with the kit, so if you order it. This is a little radio. Yes, just a mini radio. And how many of you know that 1160 AM is the designated emergency radio in this area? And if there's information needs to be gotten out to the public, it will be communicated over that radio station. So having a little radio is handy. And radios nowadays you can actually get them free online from Newsmax is offering a free radio that has the NOAA weather station on it. So any emergency communications will be coming out over the NOAA weather station also. And you can get those for free if you go to gettheradio.com. They're trying to sell their magazine is what it is, but you can get a free radio by just asking for it. An emergency sleeping bag, this is made out of material that will reflect heat back on you. Developed by NASA. Got hand sanitizer. Small body warmers. Emergency blanket, another one. Emergency poncho. Little first aid kit with bandages, antiseptic towelettes, some tape, sunscreen lotion, batteries. I had these myself, AAA's, because you're always needing batteries for something. Okay, this is a chem light. Just snap it and you've got light for several hours. Fire starters and a little striker here. So these are made to ignite quickly, so you can get a fire going to keep yourself warm. More hotties and some matches. Got an emergency little mini tool here, kind of like a Swiss Army knife. Everybody's familiar with those. Got screwdrivers, blades, little corkscrew here for your champagne. More batteries for your flashlights. I will say that it's a good idea for you to look inside your pack more often than I do, so you know where everything is. But I have so much other stuff in my truck, I very rarely even think about breaking into this pack. But if you're going to have one thing in your vehicle, let it be an emergency pack and know where everything is in it. Got a blanket here. It's a mixture of wool and synthetic. They don't itch like regular wool does, but they will keep you warm. And looky here, N95 mask. How valuable those are nowadays. We got some fire starter kits, sticks here I put in myself. It didn't come with it. Water bottle. Survival reflective tint. I think I bought that separately and put it in there. Reading glasses. This is a very valuable item here. These are emergency ration. They're like little cakes, but you do have to either eat these in 5 years or rotate them out, because then they'll kind of get hard and just flake off on you. They're probably still edible, but I would suggest replacing them. They actually, I was wondering about them a while back, so well, I need to eat one of those and see if they're even worth keeping, and they actually are pretty good. When you buy one of these kits, they come with boxed water, but I found out that those boxes, after a while, they kind of bust and all the water leaks out of them. So I pulled them out and put bottled water instead. This is another emergency or first aid kit. It has other things in there like blades and a comb, some soap. That came with it, I believe. It's emergency flashlight, and if your batteries die on it, you can hand crank it. Toilet paper, duct tape, headlamps. Most of these things I haven't really opened them, but if I was ever going to need this pack, I haven't opened them because I didn't want to stick batteries in them and then the batteries go bad. But, since you've got a multi-tool here, you wouldn't have any problem getting these open. This I believe I added myself, so in case I needed to boil some water or heat some food or something, I could have that. Allergy relief pills, I put that in myself too, that didn't come with it. I do believe it came with this little shovel type thing here, but this is pretty handy for sanitation purposes, or if you just really need to dig into the ground and get yourself covered up a little bit. 100-hour candle. These are great. This came with it, I believe. This is a little fold together, just a simple little stove. I put that in myself. Came with gloves. Comes with 3 MREs, but like I said, you want to rotate these out every 3 or 4 years. Depending on where you keep your bag. If it's hot in your vehicle, you want to rotate those out, 3 or 4 years. Come with eating utensils. Because those MREs, they will go bad after a while. Water. Okay, and this is another survival blanket. It's kind of a heavy duty one. You can get these at Walmart. These are great blankets. I usually keep more than one blanket in my truck because every now and then I give one to somebody. Somebody's broken down along the highway, or somebody's just homeless and looking like they're freezing to death out there, and if I come across them, I will help them out. So these are not very expensive. It costs like, I want to say about $10 at the most at Walmart. If you have compassion in your heart, keep 1 or 2 of these in your vehicle and give one to somebody that needs one every day, if you see them. I got this little cooler at Walmart because the water that I keep inside my truck in the wintertime tends to freeze on those weeks where the temperature never gets above 32 degrees and the water bottles will just freeze inside the truck. So I got this to keep the water from freezing, and so I'll always have a supply of water I can drink. And also Kathy and I found out just recently when we went hiking up on the mountain, you can put warm food in there and it'll keep it warm for you for a while. So those are that emergency pack and this water cooler and extra blanket. They're the things I keep in my truck at all times, and I would suggest that you do the same. If you have room in your vehicle, put it in the trunk. But biggest thing is, just like during the earthquake, if things would have if you'd have been away from home and some of the roads had gotten where you couldn't drive over them, or trees had fallen across the roads, or for any reason you couldn't get home, you want to be able to survive in your vehicle for a while. So I would suggest that everybody have an emergency pack in their vehicle. And thank you for your time tonight, and I hope that I gave you some information you can use. So, praise the Lord.